From that, I basically used micro influence, people that are not even influencers, but they were dope in style and fashion.
How did you convince the brand? Because ultimately at that time it was about clout.
Yeah.
How did you convince them that this new, I mean, it wasn't even a term yet, micro-influencer strategy could work?
So I said to them, listen, this is like my strategy and this is my plan. I said to them that, listen, the thing is that we need the brand to become more relatable. You've used your Nasty C's, you've used your Tillermans on Spree, you've used your Shekinahs on Spree, but have you ever thought about using people that are actually everyday people, people that actually have a good fashion sense? I'm not saying that those people don't have fashion sense, but I just want to give a different perspective. And I think that I was also coming off the trail of, making Forbes 30 under 30. So that made it more, that made it more believable, that I could actually produce something of quality. And then I remember it was initially, she said that we we're going to, Giselle, who was the marketing manager at the time, she was like, we're going to give Cape Town a test run. And then I said, okay, cool. And the people that I got part of the campaign, because they wanted me part of the campaign as well, initially, because they wanted me as an influencer. Then I said, no, let me lift up the script and let me do it as a campaign. We do Cape Town. It was my first national campaign that I'm running as a creative director. I'm pulling all the moving parts together. I am doing the admin, and I'm literally running from...
This is for your own company.
This is for my own company. And I'm literally only working with 4 individuals. These are people that are still in university. But I wanted to prove a point to the industry. I wanted to get to the stage of being at the Luris or the Cannes Festival. And funny enough, we were actually asked by the Luris to submit our work. All our entries were filled, so thank you to the Luris.
How did it feel, Doug? Because I think there's a whole people think that there's a whole club of like it's really the access. There's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to those awards. So how did it feel when they hit you up, and how did it transpire? Because I know that there's an application process. There's guap, which people think
they have to pay.
That guap is actually also something. It's something that is also an issue with regards to access. But how did it feel, and what was that? How did it transpire?
It was crazy for me because I didn't expect it. You know what I mean? One of the submissions that they wanted me to submit for was Young Creative of the Year, and I was just like, this is weird and crazy, and I'm gonna ride this wave. And in a sense where I started realizing I can't play this person that doesn't know what he's achieved, and I think that I've played that role for a very long time, only because of let's say my upbringing. But now I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to realize I'm being self-aware about what I've done and the person I want to become, and kind of inspire others. I think when I created the Random Network, it was to basically uplift Abantu Bamnyama, and that was the whole intention behind it, because I knew that from the business that I created, it was predominantly very white or white orientated, in a sense where those were my demographics and those are the people that I was actually kind of appealing to. And then when I realized that Abantu Bamnyama from AUWC are not getting the same opportunities or the same recognition, or people of color, in fact, I was just like, you know what, maybe I can be that person. And that's why I called it the Random Network. It is random, and it's going to be a network of people that can literally plug off each other. And I still apply those principles today, as much as I've slowed down and I've tried to see business a bit differently. I'm still applying the same principles that I use for my business to today as well. So that's basically it.
But I think the one thing that I want to look at specifically is that access you created with regards to awards. How important is it? Like, for example, you talked about the Forbes, how much it was easier to start those conversations. How important are awards? And for me, listening to you, the awards come afterwards. And I don't want to be cliche, but I see this all the time and I want to ignore it. It says that the reward is in the journey. And the more you put the work in and the value in, you understand. We believe in it's often said that South Africans believe in miracles.
That's so true.
But you don't know what the other person, the work that's put in. So for those people who are coming up out there, what is it? Is it the perception that you need to create? Because there is an aspect of creating a perception, and then you might win from it. But if you don't have substance, you ultimately will fail. Because you got the contract, but you don't have the team. You're not ready for it. You don't have the experience. How would you then? Because there's a whole aspect of the branding and marketing and content development, and you can create this fake life. So what's your advice to up and coming youngsters? I mean, kids are thinking about skipping high school at this stage. It's available out there. What would you warn? Because there's those boxes. You've managed to maneuver it perfectly.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know how to explain it, serendipitous, but unfortunately it doesn't work out for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there are people who are out there, they seem like they're doing well, but the reality is not the same.
It's not the same. That's why, like I said, that it's the control of information that people also have around, those things and like what you want to show people. And that goes back to our, my earlier answers from your questions. But the one thing that I did want to say is that I was doing about, in a month, there was maybe a 2-month period where I pushed out 70 proposals. 70. I wasn't sleeping. I had to prove something to my mom. I had to prove something to my family. Like,
I'm just trying to think a day, like how much work that is.
It was just
a lot would be the short answer.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And at that time, I went from a 20 slide proposal all the way down to a 7-slide proposal. And that's just refining your craft. That applies in everything. It's about your technique. If you're a bowler in cricket, to get that line and length, you need to have like the muscle memory of where you're hitting that ball. And that's where it became every single, let's say, presentation or client meetings that I was having. I started realizing, okay, there's a mistake up. I spoke too much on this.
Yeah.
It became such a refined process that I even know I can basically say to you that from a good 70%, I can at least get to the meeting room from just sending an email. One email, just because of the structure of that email, because of the times I've sent that email, what's going to get that client to say, let's set up a meeting. Sometimes it's difficult for people to even get into that room or space.
I want to talk about
that hard part, dude. Like, can you tell us about the shittier parts of this? You talk about entrepreneurial resilience. One of my mates who I love and respect, and I really was concerned, actually succumbed to exhaustion. He works really hard and he deserves everything that he has. But how do you manage that in terms of making sure that you don't lose yourself in that aspect? I want to talk about about rejection. I want to talk about bouncing back. I want to talk about family pressure, financial situations. My idea of entrepreneurism itself has changed. Entrepreneurship has changed because I had this very sort of victim aspect of it, because there's this romanticized sting of it. At the end of the day, doesn't matter how much passion, doesn't matter. You won't get
everyone.
It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, there's a person who needs to make sure that they don't fuck up when they give you this cash. How do you then make sure? Because you talked about, I love what you talked about when you said, you know what to say, but getting to that moment is not easy.
It's not easy. I think there were many times where I cried. There are many times where, like, I had something to prove, man. Like, I was coming off the backbone of buying my company back, or like getting my company back from my partners, and losing friends, losing my best friend, someone that I grew up with. People don't understand that. Is that, like, for me, someone that I've known almost all my life, like completely vanished out of nowhere, and I'm still 19 at the time. What am I going through? Like, what people don't understand is that there was a very transitional phase in my life where I was working part of head honcho, and that was just after RNDM, and like that gap was so important for me, because people used to say that, oh, Lulo fell off, and I was dealing with so much negativity. I was dealing with saying, oh my gosh, they're gonna they've absorbed him, they're taking all what are they gonna do? But I had a master plan. Like, I told him so about it, and I was only there for about a year. I even had a persona just to keep relevant, in a sense where it was like, ooh, danger, I had this persona.
I remember that, actually.
It was a persona, but that was me to understand branding. I think that's what people don't understand, is that, like, I put on a character, and I wanted to see how it would be received. I was doing crazy stuff. Like, I was, there was a time when I was going to Stay Fresh Durban, and we had, a crazy time. And like, the thing is that I still wanted to understand different things. And I remember when Nick was telling me that, like, what do you want to do here? And I told him that, like, I've done the clothing part. Like, I know everything about the clothing. I don't know about the brands that you guys work with, the events. That's what I want to know. And even in that graft, I was still being ridiculed. Like, and in that time, I was transitioning from the clothing aspect into the branded or the lifestyle branding aspect of it, of my company. Because what I understood from my business, that's the one thing that entrepreneurs don't get. It's either that like, okay, a paperclip is going to sell, but do you consider your competitors? Do you consider how big the market is? Now, the one thing I knew is that if I created a business on, let's say, as a medium, clothing was the medium.
Yeah.
The messaging was still the same. Now take that medium and apply it to different aspects of business. So if you go into branding and you want to create people and bring them together, that's how Spree brought into it. That's how Kia Motors brought into it. I said, I want to take people to Rocking the Daisies, my friends, and we're going to document our lifestyle. That's a core pillar of RNDM. So the one thing is that's why that separates the wheat and the weeds in that sense. Some people think that, okay, it's easy, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do that, but they don't encounter the other things. And that's why I think branding is so important. But when we talk about the negative stuff, man, like, there was a time when I was failing at university. It was just a tough, space for me because I'm trying to prove to my mom that, like, this is where it is. I've tried to do this, but mom, I'm telling you, I'm making money off this. And let me show you that I can do these things. My mom put her trust in me eventually. She even started helping me financially. Yeah. And I'm not talking, and my mom is not like well off, guys. Like, I mean, I'm talking about a middle.
How long did it take? Sorry, I just want to get granular. How long did it take, like, for her to, from that moment when you're like, mom, I can do this, to the moment where the light bulb was like, actually?
I think when she started seeing me make money when I was 19 and making a lot of money, she was like, I actually believe in this. And when I lost all of that, she was like, I've got some sort of hope in him. And I think that took about, maybe after that period, I think maybe took 3 or 4 years. Yeah. But in that phase, I was trying to also see how I'm going to map this whole thing out. And when I left let's say the head honcho team, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't care if I failed. And that's one thing that people don't understand is that you can fail, you can lose. I lost a lot of friends, man. Like, I mean, that's when I started understanding Lendo aesthetics. You gain people from when you're winning, and only people want to be there only because you accumulated all of this. You have access, and then there are people that were to
what you're talking about, networking versus
clout chasing. Yeah. So the thing is that, like, for me, I wanted to build networks with people and, like, create relationships with people so that we can both win. Okay. I never want it's almost like a transaction, but we both get something out of it. We both get to grow together. We could even become potentially friends. And I think in that sense is that I didn't know, and I'll make an example, a real life example is that, like, Costa Titch, I'd only heard about him obviously in, like, teaching Galagata, and I'm like, oh damn, this is hot, And then I'm like, shit, this kid is crazy. And then I met him at a nightclub and we just started speaking, man. And, like, I was just like, yo, man, like, what are you currently, doing? And, like, he's like, yeah, I've got this Galagata song, I want to do the remix. So I said, listen, okay, do you need a budget for this remix? Do you need, like, She's like, yeah, that would be actually dope. So I'm like, okay, sharp. Literally a week after I'd met him. Set up a meeting, office in, but it's not a formal meeting. Yeah, I just want him to understand the culture. Sit in the wall, and Jay took him to the bar at work. We started talking, and and then we just started getting to know each other from there. And that's, like, I mean, the story behind it. Even with me and Okanya at that point in time, it was like, we're trying to get this guy, this deal, and we're telling our, the people that we're working with.
I want to talk about this aspect of networking. Yeah. Like, what's the I like, because now I'm almost going to answer, because you answered it perfectly. Yeah. You spoke about specifics. Yeah. With that guy, you thought about the conversation to an extent. What's the difference between those bride conversations, those party conversations, working and them not working? Because, I mean, even the ones that are preemptive, where people will say, let's have a luncheon, let's have a black business luncheon, all of these things, they're available. What's the difference between those discussions, which actually get you to get to the HB, then versus let's work together,
let's build.
Oh, let's build. Let's build. So the thing is that I think I've seen it more in Joburg culture. And then this is no disrespect to anyone that I've met or anything, but it's just me observing. The one thing that I can say that I am, and I'm an observant person, and I think that, like, people just ride on relationships. And the thing is that this person wants to get something out of it, whether you want to appear on someone's snap. Let me show me. So the thing is, like, and sometimes it's a bit sore, sometimes it comes across like that. But the thing is that like those people want to associate themselves. Like it's so weird because I'll make an example, especially when Joe pick up to Cape Town.
Yeah.
And then you wanting to see those parties. Oh, were you invited? Or and they're trying to move into that, those circles, those spaces. Everyone wants to get a photo with Cedric. Everyone wants to get a photo with those people. They want to be seen with those people.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you don't really. I think I want to use this. Only man knows the thoughts of man, and only God knows the thoughts of God. And when I refer to this, is that like you don't really know someone's true intentions. You don't know if that person is really clout chasing, or if he's trying to actually really build with you, or if he's trying to work with you. And I think that you only see that through experiences. And for some people, it helps propel them to a certain place where they can work with different people.
Yeah.
And some people use people as, let's say, a leap board. So as much as I was chasing clout from you, I just went to go and springboard so I can speak to that person.